What's the most pathetic thing you've done because you were horny? I once masturbated with hand sanitizer. Those of you who have been in this position know this is already a bad idea. Being the pyromaniac I was at 14, I also knew that when lighting hand sanitizer on fire on your hand, it burned slowly and not as hot. So I was like, what the hell, and found a lighter, went at it until I was about to finish, and then lit my crotch ablaze. I was immediately in pain, flipping over in bed to put out my fiery genitalia. I did not come that night, and as a cherry on top, peeing the next day hurt like a motherfucker because of the Hane Sane. 0 out of 10 do not recommend. Edit. Sorry to everyone I seem to have frustrated. I didn't think a story about stupid teenage horniness was really going to upset so many people. Thank you for gold though. In that sense and that sense alone, it was worth it. You lit your dick on fire. I thought that, no matter how stupid you were, don't light your dick on fire was common sense. I was wrong. Jerked off in my friend's pool while he was inside making us sandwiches while we were 13. I finished as he came back outside and he dove headfirst into my floating cum. Sandwiches were good 8 out of 10. I'm assuming you never told him? I'll go to the grave with that one. Hey Mike, remember that time when you fell headfirst in my cum? Mike, sure. Remember that time you ate cum sandwiches? Called one of those late night chat lines. Met up with this 47-year-old chick at like 5 in the morning. She was a heroin addict. Helped her move a bunch of on her lawn for a yard sale, presumably to get money for more drugs. Felt her boobs and made out with her a little. Her daughter came downstairs and they got in an argument, calling each other c***s. She asked me to go upstairs, but I politely declined. I left after that. Don't make that call. Big mistake not asking for a mother-daughter threesome. That's how real life works, right? I once ate a can of Chef Boyardee raviolis. This should be the first line of a novel. Masturbated in an airplane bathroom when I was like 12. Couldn't finish because a 6-year-old kept knocking on the door. Well, why didn't you let him out? I engineered a fleshlight out of a towel, rubber band, rubber glove and hand lotion which I then taped to the computer desk and cooked. I was home alone and 14. I carved a hole out of a bar of soap once. Pulled up Pornhub and vigorously rubbed one out over the course of an Ultra Supreme Rain X car wash once. Edit. My biggest post is about jerking off in a car wash. As many of you have talked about cameras, I've always wondered, but didn't really care. Got off with just enough time. Slow day at work, took the work van in for a wash. Had a got off, don't care attitude. Thanks for the karma. I like how the car wash is the most detailed part of this short story. Blew a guy while his dad slept in the bed next to us. He probably wasn't even asleep while we were doing it, and I'm assuming he never slept ever again after that. Clorox burns. I have this username for a reason. I was about 12 or 13, still a traffic cone, and f***ed it a few times. I had to cut a slit in the hole and fold it in, then put some Vaseline soaked cloth in to line it. I was a pretty creative child. You're like a MacGyver. I'm Jewish, ethnically at least, and I slept with a girl whose OKCupid profile had mentioned the destruction of Israel. Who puts that in their OKCupid profile? Turn-ons include candlelit dinners, the way a man smells after working out, and the destruction of the Zionist usurpers. I thought putting my dick into a snowball would be fun. Turns out I compacted it too tight, so it was like rubbing dick on an ice rink floor. 0 out of 10 would Frosty the Snowman again. I once masturbated in the backseat of my parents' van while my dad drove. I was probably 12 or 13, in the far back, 2 seats behind him, with nobody else in the van, but looking back on it, he'd have to be pretty oblivious to not know. Addition, I also jerked off in the doctor's office between when the nurse checked me into the exam room and when the doctor actually showed up. Race against time was actually kinda exciting. Deposited my future children right in the corner of the room. Edit. To all you people who went under the pants or under a blanket, we are not on the same page. Hooked up with an ex, whom I hate. Actually she hated me too. Like we had the would not waste the piss on each other to put out the flames if one of us was burning alive kind of hate going on. The sex was angry, awkward, mutually selfish and devoid of any personal warmth, and we both clearly felt ashamed about it afterwards, and were questioned what in our lives had gone wrong to bring us to this moment. That was beautiful, man. During a blizzard, a friend with benefits called me to meet her because she felt lonely. A normal walk of 2 miles and some change lasted from 40 minutes to 1 hour and 51 minutes. It was close to midnight by the time I got there at her downstairs basement, only for her father to randomly check on her, causing me to contort my body to hide from him. Glad I'm still alive. But did you get some? I was really sick with asthma that almost killed me. I was admitted to the hospital 2 weeks at this point, and my girlfriend comes in to visit and gives me blowjob in the bathroom with IVs and all sorts of stuff still plugged into me. When I was coming I had a pain in my chest and almost collapsed. Jerked it to home drawn porn. I'm not very good at drawing. Edit. Lots of people asking for an example. I got a semi drawing this again. Childhood me was very repressed and lived in the age of no internet. The best I could manage were the Shopko and Target ads for bras. Once came upon the holy grail of circulars which contained a full page ad of 5 to 6 women in matching underwear sets of various colors / lace etc. I spent countless hours tracing the ad onto another sheet of paper as I couldn't draw either, and then removing the underwear in my new sketch. The problem was though, I had no idea what women looked like under the panties. Again, super oppressed, so in the end I settled for leaving the bottoms on and removing the bras, which were mostly an estimation of what I assumed boobs looked like, as again, had no reference other than nipples seemed constant across genders. I would set this next to the original as sort of a primitive /r/on-off. It was promptly thrown out after my first girlfriend in high school, when it was no longer needed, but I'd probably still recognize a couple of them if I saw them on the street. And this was 20 to 25 years ago. Reading this now it sounds really creepy. I should also mention that I was raised to believe touching yourself in any way was evil, as I'm sure many in here were. Parents, don't over-shelter your kids when it comes to sex or they'll get creative in disturbing ways. Was playing Battlefront 2 with my best friend when I was about 13. The urge came on, and I used the vibration from the controller to secretly do the deed while we were playing. I believe I was playing as the clone trooper with a heavy machine gun that could fire for long periods of time without overheating lol. I did this with the Warthog machine gun in Halo, pretty much sure a lot of people did. I was in a party with like 8 people, and I'm pretty sure my friend did this. Someone mentioned it in a funny way, like oh you could keep this controller vibrating for a while, and then my friend went ghost on us, and a few minutes later we heard a faint like grunt from his mic, and a minute later he was back on the mic and claimed his mom wanted him to do something. Thing is, you know the sound the old headsets made when you took them off and on if you didn't mute them, which he never did. His mic never made that noise before or after, leading me to believe he did the deed, while also hearing us 7 guys yell his name. When I was in college, there was a really bad snowstorm one night, but I was up late texting some girl. Things got heated, and I decided to brave the storm to get lucky. I ended up getting stuck in the snow about a half mile from her house in the city. I abandoned my car in the middle of the street and walked the rest of the way because I was not going home empty-handed. Got that ass, yes, then returned to my car a couple hours later to find the battery depleted from the hazards. It was like 4 AM at this point, so I had nobody to contact for a jump. I ended up waiting almost 2 more hours before someone driving by jumped me, and I was able to unstick my car and drive home. 10 out of 10 would do again. Great life memory of a desperate struggle for a conquest. In my sophomore year of college, the batteries in my vibrator ran out at a really inopportune time. I put on some pajamas, walked down the hall, and checked in our communal TV's remote for an exchange. This became somewhat of a tradition, culminating in the realization that I needed to buy my own batteries when I found myself doing it in somebody else's dorm. When I graduated to plug-in vibrators, I forgot to account for wattage changes when going abroad, and blew out the fuse of my apartment as a first introduction to all of my roommates. There's this guy who went to my brother's school that was tripping on acid in the bathroom, jacking off to porn on his phone, maximum volume with no headphones, while laying on the ground in the stall. It ended with security outside the stall trying to get him out, and he yelled, "I'm not getting out until I finish." I feel like he deserved a standing applause as he was escorted out. Made myself in Sims just to get laid.